Okay, I got a good one for you. I've been searching high and low for a really good Victory Amps Kraken profile online, and as you may or may not know, it's a very hard amp to get a hold of physically as well as an elusive profile to find. So I finally came across Victory Amps' official Kemper profile website, and what they have on there are official profiles of their amps. And I think that's a really good idea. And by the way, as an aside, I wish every company would do that, because then they would be able to make money off of the profiles and they get to put their stamp of approval on them as well. So to all the companies out there that are watching this, I highly suggest that you come up with official profiles of your amps, because they're going to get done anyway, so they might as well be done by you and bought from you. Okay, so getting back to the topic at hand. Rebea Massad is the guy who actually did the profiles for the Victory Kraken. Now, everybody knows who Rebea is. I mean, he's a really good guitar player, and he's a YouTuber, and he's a gear nut just like all of us are. So he was in charge of making the official profiles for the Victory Kraken, and I figured they're going to be amazing. So I purchased the profiles and downloaded them into my Kemper, and I picked one that I liked, and I'm going to show you what the raw profile is like. My initial thoughts are it's a little dark, and I was concerned about whether or not it would stand out in a mix, both live and in a studio. Well, that said, it definitely has enough good things going on with it where it's worth my time doing some tweaking and seeing if I can get it to sit in a mix properly. I even sent an email to the Kraken store and said, I really like the profile, but it's a bit dark, and I wanted to see what their reasons were behind it. And they actually talked to Rebea and got his thoughts on it and responded with me, and I'm going to go ahead and post their email right now. I'm really glad that they got back with me and gave me this information, because it really gave me a lot of insight on what Rebea was thinking when he did the profiles. And I found out a lot of things that I really like about his process and why he did things the way he did them. Number one, he didn't profile the amp with an overdrive in front of it. He profiled it raw so that we could put whatever pedal in front of it that we want, so we don't have to worry about being stuck with something we don't like. I mean, obviously there's a ton of overdrive pedals out there, and we all like different things, so that gave us the option to do that. And the other thing that he did is he profiled the amp flat, so there were no EQ settings on it at all, so that we can take the EQ settings and do whatever we want with them. I think a lot of times profilers put out amps with a lot of EQ settings on them, and we're just used to getting all that and not having to do a lot of tweaking, where with what Rebea did is he allowed us to do whatever tweaking that we wanted. I can go ahead and make the tweaks that I need to do so that this will sit in a mix and be more to my taste. And doing this without adding on to an already EQ'd amp. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's not like EQing of the EQing. It's just a raw amp tone that I'm going to turn a couple knobs just like I would on a real amp and make it sound how I want it to. Now, this situation right here is a perfect example of what I was talking about in an episode I posted a couple weeks ago titled How to Get Out of the Digital Platforming Rabbit Hole. The reason why this is so important is one of the things I talked about in that episode was checking out profiles to see if they had any potential and if it was worth investing your time into to see if you could get it to work for you. So basically with this one, we are definitely at the point where this is well worth my time to do some minor tweaks and get it to sit in a mix properly. And I know I'm going to really like this afterwards. It's very full sounding, and I love how it feels. It feels just like a real amp, and it's got a lot of great tonal qualities to it. It's just a little dark. So what I'm going to do is try to brighten it up without making it sound fake or fizzy, and see if I can get it to stick out of a mix properly and sound even better. So what you're going to hear in the mix is the raw profile with a slight bass cut and with the overdrive on, and you're also going to hear the tweaked version of the profile. So the song parts that I used was a verse, pre-chorus and a chorus. I think it's around 1.5 minutes, maybe a little longer, but the reason why I went that long is because there's a lot of different dynamics going on with vocals, keyboards, and different things, and I wanted to make sure that the profile that I tweaked sat in the mix properly through all of that without having to nudge anything for each part so that it would stand out properly or not be overbearing in certain parts. And I found out that what I did made it sit in the mix just right for all of the different sections and dynamics that were going on. So let's take a listen to that, and then after that we'll come back and I'm going to show you what I did to tweak this profile to make it sound like it did in that mix.
There was once a time he walked a narrow line down a crowded road, and he thought his life would always be shadows and suffering. Can anything destroy these walls around his head? She searched for a place, something to call her home, where she can build her dreams. She is strong and full of life, colors rich and bright, bursting from inside her. Someday destiny waits for those who seek to find it.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you an isolated A-B comparison between the raw tone and the tweaked tone. So here we go. Okay, so obviously there was a pretty big difference between the two versions of that profile. But let me say this, even though there is a big difference between the two versions of the profile, the adjustments that I made were very, very small and very minor. And it only took a couple seconds to do, so it was very easy to do. And once again, this is a perfect example of a great profile that's worth a little bit of investment of your time and energy to make it sound amazing. Okay, so real quick, let me show you how I tweak the profile. Number one, I hold down the cabinet button and I see that pure cabinet is at 1.3. Now check this out. I'm going to go ahead and hit a chord and I'm going to turn pure cabinet all the way off and you're going to hear a difference. Already sounds much better, doesn't it? I always do that first because before I do any EQing on the amp, why not make sure that the pure cabinet's off, because that's always a preferred setting for me, and honestly it should be for you as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is just turn up the treble a little bit because I still want a little more high end on the amp so it cuts through the mix properly. I'm going to go ahead and put it up to like 2. Already sounds way better. Okay, so let's knock the presence up a little bit. Up to like 7. All right, now let's add some fullness with some mid-range. Let's just put it up to like 0.5. If you ask me, that's about as good as it gets. It sounds fantastic, and I didn't have to do much to it. Once again, this is a fantastic profile, and the reason why I'm doing this episode is because a lot of times you're going to come across profiles that are really, really good, and if you just put a little bit of work into them, they're going to sound absolutely fantastic, and this is definitely one of the ones that I would recommend for you. So like I said, the Victory Kraken profiles are very hard to find, and I'm so glad I found this one because there's a ton of potential in it, and I didn't have to do a whole lot of work to it to make it work. So when you find a profile that's just almost there, definitely take a few minutes and put some work into it, and you'll make it work for you. And Rebea, if you're watching this, thank you very much for making such a good profile and for making it raw and unpolished and unprocessed so that we can put in some work and make this work for our particular needs. Because I really don't like taking processed profiles and then reprocessing them. I love your raw approach. It actually works very well. So if you haven't checked these profiles out, definitely do. I think they're really good. And once again, you can tailor them to your needs without over-processing them. Well, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I have a lot of great stuff coming up, and to all my subscribers, I really appreciate you immensely. And please share this episode with all of your friends that own Kempers or are thinking about getting a Kemper, because it's my hope that when people watch this episode, they see that it's really not that hard to make some adjustments on a really good profile and make it work for them. Well, I got a lot of great stuff coming up, and I'll see you on the next episode.